Welcome to Travel with Zan. Today I'm going to be talking about the Villa Vie Odyssey, the pros, cons, and the controversy that's surrounding this residential cruise ship. I'm a traveller who likes to show you local and far-flung destination videos, highlighting what to see and unmissable hidden treasures. I love cruising, but also love travelling by train and by land and air. Please subscribe to follow along on my adventures. I'm currently in Australia, but I'm going to be in China soon and Europe later in the year. As someone who loves cruising, travelling and seeing the world, I've been eagerly following the ups and downs of the inaugural sailing of the Villa Vie Odyssey. I first caught the cruising bug back in 1986, yeah, that long ago, and I've been enjoying cruising ever since. Villa Vie is a new company that's bought a cruise ship and it's offering residential cruising, which is where people live on the cruise ship. The idea of residential cruising fascinates me. For me, one of the main benefits of cruising is the fact that you get to travel without having to unpack, pack, repack, carry your luggage around. So residential cruising means you can do this with more of your belongings, making the experience feel much like home rather than on a normal cruise. In this video, I'm going to look at the background to the Villa Vie, facilities on board Odyssey, the information coming from the ship, pros and cons of residential cruising, and Villa Vie in particular, and cost options for Villa Vie, and stick around to find out if I think it's worth it. I decided to put my thoughts about residential cruising and the Villa Vie out there because most of what I've seen has been either from people on the ship, and that's been very, very positive, or a few other things that have been very negative and kind of clickbaity about all the negatives that are happening. So I just thought I would present what I found out and what I think about it, and hopefully my thoughts will be in a fair and non-biased way. Please note that the footage used in this video is not of the Villa Vie Odyssey. I haven't been on the ship, never seen the ship, but I have included some photos of cruises and cruising from some of the different ships that I've been on. The Villa Vie Odyssey offers a bold way of living and travelling. Life aboard a residential cruise ship with a 15-year buy-in and a rolling 3.5-year itinerary covering over 140 countries. This concept has fascinated and divided opinions. Whilst many are intrigued, the ship, formerly Fred Olsen's Braemar, which is a 31-year-old vessel, and its pricing structures have sparked debate. Yes, there are other world cruises on established cruise lines, and these are certainly something I've looked at. Some itineraries are better than others, but most of the affordable ones still only do one day in port, with long transocean, Pacific and Atlantic crossings without ports. Other people have also taken continual back-to-back cruises to live on a cruise ship. The downside of this is likely you'll see a limited number of ports, visiting many of them once again over and over and over, and these are generally well-trodden tourist destinations. And so with only one day in port, it's going to be hard to see anything further afield, though I do think if you kept going to the same place every week, you'd probably start making some local friends, and maybe that could be quite good. So I guess if there's somewhere that you really wanted to go in the world and sort of live, but maybe travel around a bit, that could be a good option. Issue for me would be that you'd have to think about residency, and I think you'd probably have to be sailing out of a port where you have residency. So that is something that I'd have to consider. One of the most famous back-to-back cruises is Mario Saucedo, known as Super Mario, who's been travelling on Royal Caribbean since 2000. And in January 2025, he sailed on his 1000th cruise with the line. So he must be enjoying it. I watch a number of cruise channels, and 30 and a Wake Up and Poverty of Paradise are two of them that I really like, where they're people living full-time as such on a cruise ship. I've linked them below if you want to check them out, and these people seem to really enjoy it. So I think it's a pretty easy way of life. So the idea of residential cruising has fascinated me for a number of years. I've looked at the World, which is the first residential cruise ship, but it's got like really mouth-watering prices, and so I never really looked at it properly. I've even considered doing the adult lifelong learner program on Semester at Sea. I was quite interested in this, but I just wasn't really sure about it because of it being mostly American college students. So I didn't really know how I'd fit in. So I did like the idea that they spent a lot of time in port and the education side of it, but I then stopped looking at that one. And so, as I said, I've been interested in how this venture with Villa Vie has been going since it started. I've been following along. There was some other previous residential cruising companies that were trying to start up, but they didn't happen. And I've been following some of the YouTubers and bloggers from the Villa Vie since they were stuck in Belfast before they finally got to sail. That was due to poor management and organisation, and the ship wasn't ready to sail on time. So the ship's departure was delayed a lot. It was obviously the original schedule was just, for the dry dock work was just never going to be feasible. So they were pretty good. So the people that had travelled to Ireland, they got to go on some holidays. They had their hotel paid for, but they just kept continually being told, oh, it's going to be next week or it's going to be a few days. And I think that just would have been really horrible. But yeah, so personally, I was really cheering them on when they finally got to sail, and I'm sure there were a lot of big sighs of relief on board. Even though the first time they actually ended up just anchored sort of out at port because they were still waiting for some more paperwork, but at least they got away from the dock, I guess. Several YouTubers and bloggers have taken to documenting their Odyssey experiences, and I've been following along with their adventures. But as I said before, they're all very positive. So it does make you wonder, what the truth is and whether they're sugarcoating it. Like all of social media, people just tend to put out the good stuff out there and not really the bad stuff generally. So if you add to that a lot of these people invested a lot of money, and obviously they want the venture to thrive so that they don't lose any money, so they're not probably going to be saying a lot of the bad things. But I feel all of the positivity can leave potential residents and interested followers questioning what life on board is really like. The main YouTube channels I watch, which I'll link in the description below, are Midlife Cruising, Steve and Angela, one of the first to cover the journey, and the prolific bloggers providing consistent updates. They're always upbeat and they provide ever-improving content, port, ship and cabin tours. I've started really looking forward to their videos now. Living Life on a Cruise. Johan and Lynette share videos of the port highlights. They're interestingly still working remotely, so that's probably why they don't post much. The Kiwi Odyssey. From New Zealand, Katrina and her husband highlight shipboard life and port highlights. It's nice to see people not from America posting for a different perspective, especially as I'm living in Australia, so it's really good to see the New Zealanders. DC Hidden Gems. They're a retired American businessman couple, and they've talked a lot about their reasoning for being on the ship. Though at times they do seem to be selling it just a bit too much for me. But it is an interesting channel and I do enjoy it. I feel that they've taken on the criticism of being super positive and their content has improved, so I think that's one to definitely still watch. The Cruise Fam. There's a family of 4 from the US with parents and 2 teenage daughters. They started off posting a lot and looked really promising. One of the daughters is hearing impaired and she did a video on American Sign Language, but they don't really post very much, so I'd really like to hear from them because I really quite like them. They're not owners and I believe that they're just doing 1 year on the ship, so it would be really interesting to see what they're thinking of it. There are a couple of smaller channels, Now We Start Exploring and Believe Sailing, that have a few videos with port highlights, and I'm sure there's others that I've not seen. JJ Cruise, an American couple, an established cruise channel. They talked early on about joining the ship. I'm not sure, this might have been part of some sort of Villa Vie press influencer event that they were going to do, and then with the delays of the ship not sailing, that didn't happen because they stopped saying that they were going to be living there, and now they're saying that they might be on in 2025. So I'm not really sure what that's about, but I don't think they're actually buying in. But they are an interesting channel, and they did do a really interesting video comparing the costs of living on a cruise ship to living on land in Florida, and that got me thinking a lot more about the whole venture. It came out from their video that the cost of living on a cruise ship was comparable, if not maybe a bit lower than living on land. But the one thing I didn't think they took into account was that at the end of the 15 years, you don't have an asset to sell. And if you're living on land and paying a mortgage, you would. So that was something to take into consideration. And I guess if you had a property on land and that was an appreciating property or investments for the same amount of money, then that could probably work, to make it more affordable. There are also quite a lot of bloggers with websites documenting their travels, including Rick's Pics, which is one of my favourites. There's lots of great photos and commentary. Bass's blog and Joe Rhodes are both very well written and entertaining. And there's lots more, so if you just look them up if you're interested. And there's Facebook pages, including some of the ones from above, like Midlife Cruising, but also there's Captain the Cruising Kitty. I love cats, so Holly's page, presented from the perspective of her cat Captain, is super fun, and so I look at that sometimes. So the ship, the Odyssey, has faced criticism for its age, with people saying it's dirty and old, but the travellers who've been on the Bremer, as it was prior to being the Villa Vie Odyssey, up until 2019 when it stopped sailing for Fred Olsen, they said it was a really lovely ship and it gets a really good rating on Cruise Critics, so I'm not really sure about that. I think it looks like mean, it looks like a cruise ship and it looks quite nice to me. The smaller size of the ship allows for visits to unique ports and longer stays, which it makes it advantageous over typical mega cruises. I personally just don't really like those really big cruise ships. I much prefer much smaller cruise ships. So I actually quite like the look of the Odyssey and the size of it. So for me, that would be like a big plus. And in particular, on a residential cruise, I wouldn't really need constant entertainment and a holiday atmosphere. Thinking about life at home, I'm not going out every night to a theatre show and bumper cars and iFly all the time. If I wanted to do those things, then yeah, I could do those in ports, just the same as I would at home, the same sort of frequency I do at home. I do enjoy, doing those kind of things, but not every day. I don't need them every day. Um, and from what I've seen, the ship does bring on some local entertainers, which looks quite good. And I think that would be like really cool, little shows, and also the entertainment staff on the ship. They do like special events and nights, and the residents themselves have been doing talks. And yeah, I think there'd be plenty entertainment for normal life. Like, I think people are saying that, or people are thinking about comparing it to a commercial cruise. And then on a commercial cruise, yeah, you're on holiday for 1 week, 2 weeks. You want a lot of entertainment. You want to make the most of your time. But if you're living on there, then I think is a different story. So the residents seem to provide a lot of their own entertainment. They do karaoke, residents talks, um, little planned events. I don't know, they redid the library. So I think whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, you can, join in as much as you want, and, spend as much time by yourself as you want. And the ship is always in ports. Like, there's not a lot of sea days, there's a lot of port days. And obviously that's the main entertainment. And you're going to get back from, spending time in port, and you're going to be tired and not really want to be partying all night every night. Well, at least I wouldn't. So for me, that would be fine. They do spend a few days in port, and I've seen a lot of people saying like they might just spend the morning on the ship and the afternoon in port, or the opposite way round. So that does sound like a way of making it a lot less tiring than going on a normal cruise. So yeah, I mean, for me, I'm sure I would spend many evenings just in my cabin reading a book or watching TV and chilling like I would normally at home. So I think that for me, the entertainment would be a perfect amount. At present, the pool is only able to be used at sea. And this is something I do think is a problem, and I hope it would be remedied. I do like to swim, but I don't actually really like to swim in cruise ship pools, particularly because they're salt water and they're small and you can't really swim. But, I think when you get back on board after a hot day in port, a quick dip in the pool could be nice. So, hopefully that's something that they're going to get fixed, the ability to have the pools running all the time, not just when they're out at sea. Another thing that has been promised was a golf simulator. I have seen Kathy say that this is going to happen and soon, so that will be interesting to see if that does happen. I don't know if I'd use it, so I'm certainly not a golfer, so that really doesn't bother me. But I can see, it was obviously a big plus for some people going on the cruise, so that's hopefully they'll get that sorted soon. My biggest worry with the ship is the age. At 30 years old, the ship's fine, but the cabins are being sold for 15 years. So, how will the ship hold up for this length of time? And would it end up spending more and more time in dry dock, maybe, trying to get repairs done because it's an older ship? And if Villa Vie survives anyway and flourishes, would they move you to a new ship if the Odyssey had problems? So, these are questions I don't believe the management are answering. Uh, if they have, let me know in the comments below, but I haven't really heard anything about what they'll do if there is a problem with the Odyssey. So thinking about it all made me draw up a list of pros and cons. For me, one of the biggest pros of living on a cruise ship, whether residential or just like a normal cruise ship, is the ability to see the world with very little effort. Cruising just means you can travel to different places. You're not lugging luggage around. You're not having to get on aeroplanes. You don't have to pack and unpack. That's why I love cruising. That's like my number one thing about cruising. Also for Villa Vie, it's a known and predictable cost. Like they've told you how much you're spending each month, and it's comparable to living on land. So that makes it, really nice option if you are ready to start traveling full time. I think that anyone who likes cruising, they would say that not having to cook and clean, especially clean, is one of the big bonuses. And Villa Vie, you get twice a week room service, twice a week laundry services. They do also have a free laundry on board, so if you've got something delicate or something you think might run, you can just um, do the washing yourself for free. But having someone come and clean your cabin and all the outside areas being cleaned all the time, that's, yeah, big bonus. All the food is provided the same as on a normal cruise ship. Um, yeah, so I think that's a big bonus. I'm someone, I don't particularly like cooking. I used to, but the whole 3 meals a day with 3 kids plus snacks for all the years of my children growing up. Well, I'm happy to just not cook anymore. So, um, yeah, the food on the Villa Vie looks pretty good. The salads look good. I'm not really generally a buffet person, but certainly some of the stuff at the buffet looks good, and I'd be happy with like salads for lunch and maybe some of the other things. The restaurant's only open 2 nights a week. As long as the buffet food's fine, that wouldn't bother me because I'd be happy to only go out to eat twice a week in like a restaurant and have something simpler the other nights. Um, though generally, I don't think the buffet is necessarily much simpler than the dining room. It's just not sitting down waiter service. But yeah, I mean, everyone says the food's good. The food looks pretty good. Sometimes not so appetizing, I think, when they go to the buffet later. But yeah, I think the food would be fine. And for me, cruising, the food being provided for me is a definite pro. One thing is, I guess, if you crave some kind of food that's not available, um, but I guess that's what port stops are for. You can, spend that time going to find that food that you really want. I don't know. The only thing in all the times I've been cruising that I've ever really wanted was a decent hash brown at breakfast because I don't eat a lot of gluten, so I do like the odd hash brown. And I've never found a cruise ship that does ones that I really like. But, that's fine. I can survive without that and maybe find those in a port or just survive if it means I don't have to cook any more meals. There was initially talk of there being a residence kitchen. This isn't going to happen because it's a regulatory thing. I don't know. It's one of those things that makes you wonder how much they really thought things through when they first started out, because I think it's well known that you can't have anything that can cause fires on a ship and that a residence kitchen was just probably not going to happen. Um, but yeah, I definitely think that food probably falls into pros and cons. I think it just really depends of the quality. I say I don't really eat in the buffet on a cruise ship, but I do like the sort of eateries around like a buffet, like where they have like the specialty, like an Indian or Asian. I always like those. So if they've got food that's of that kind of quality, sort of food court kind of quality, that I'm happy with for, a lot of the meals and, a couple of nice dinners, and obviously trying food in ports, trying different foods in different places. So yeah, really think that the food would be fine for me, and I know that's something that a lot of people saying is definitely a con, but I think for me it would be fine. So for me, one of the biggest pros of Villa Vie is over traditional work cruises is the amount of time that they spend in port. Being able to spend a few days in port and really immerse yourself, um, maybe travel and see something that's nearby. Like, I've seen the residents on the ship do a number of times. Um, to be able to see ports in the evening by staying overnight. I think, a place is very different in the evening than it is during the day. For the Odyssey, being a smaller ship, they can go into some of these ports that just aren't on regular cruise itineraries. And so that to me is a really big bonus of the trip that Villa Vie is offering. And from an affordability point of view, included in the price is the internet, 2 to 4 drinks a day, so 2 drinks, beer or wine with breakfast and lunch, um, all your food, the laundry, cleaning, the ability to bring your own drinks and snacks on board. So, everybody seems to have their own little bar area in their cabins. This for normal commercial cruise lines, selling alcohol is one of the biggest ways of making money. So, these things all make it a lot more affordable by being able to do that. And from what I've seen, the bar prices are actually really low anyway if you choose to buy drinks on board. So all of that does make it a lot more affordable. I don't know whether this will continue. I'm not really sure how their model's working. I mean, so the ways most commercial cruise lines make money is through gambling and alcohol. There's no casino on board, which I'm glad about. I don't gamble. I did used to work as a croupier many years ago, and I really just don't like gambling. I don't think I'd want that kind of environment when people long term are gambling and losing money, over a long period of time. I don't think it would be a good atmosphere on the ship. And as I say, I'm not really sure. They seem to have very cheap bar prices, and considering that's the main way of cruise ships making money, I don't know whether they'll keep the prices as low as they are right now. So that'll be interesting to see. From a livability perspective, they've got a business center, internet, gyms, all of that's included. So, that's all a bonus. That's kind of all the things that I would want or need in normal life. So that was great that they're all included. So the next one, people. Being with the same people all the time, which I'm not sure if that's a pro or a con. I guess it depends on the people. So let's move on to some of the many cons of this venture. The biggest one has to be the financial uncertainty. This is a startup and one that doesn't appear to be very transparent with its financials at all. The ship is older and therefore it's more likely to need work done on it. And, will it even make the 15 years that you've bought in for? So will Villa Vie be able to afford or prepared to do the extra work to keep it running? Until it's 45 years old. That's something I'm really not sure about, and I am wary of startups. I have worked for startups in IT a couple of times that have not made it. I only lost out a couple of weeks' wages, so that really wasn't a problem for me. But obviously, the amount of money that you're putting into this venture, I just, startups aren't necessarily often successful. 90% of startups, if is what the research say, fail. So yeah, that would be the biggest worry for me, and why the number one reason why I wouldn't be keen to buy in. Further on to that is the overall business plan of Villa Vie viable long term? Like this, having a fixed monthly fee, it sounds great for the person that's going on the ship, knowing how much money you have to spend every month, but having an amount that over 15 years doesn't rise at all with inflation. I think they working it out on the segments and stuff, all the other options will go up in price, and therefore that will combat the owners not having to go up in price. But I'm just really a little unsure about that. So yeah, and I also feel like there's a lot more solo cruises on than maybe they'd planned, which they're going to get less revenue from. So I'm not really sure, but I just not really sure if financially the company is viable and that they've actually done enough forward work to really make it a financially viable company. So as I mentioned before about people being with the same people, and it could become grating. It's hard to get away from people on the ship, but then saying that there is places you can get away, and obviously you have your own cabin. That would obviously be better if you had a balcony cabin, but I'm happy sitting in my room. It doesn't really bother me. Um, there's it seems to be a good mix of people. Obviously, it's the bigger personalities that are being seen, but there seems to be plenty of other people that appear in the back of people's videos and stuff. So I think that I think it would be fine. I think you'd find your tribe, and same with you see the same workmates and stuff all the time. So I think that would actually probably be okay, but it really would just depend on the group of people that there are on the ship. One of the big pros that I mentioned about Villa Vie is that they stay for 2 to 4 days in ports, and this is a real pro over normal cruising. But if you're buying into this whole idea for 15 years, then whilst it's slow traveling compared to normal cruising, it's still fast traveling. And that to me is a con. There might be places that I would like to spend longer in. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe one way around that would be to only do, say, 3.5 or 7 years, 1 or 2 circumnavigations, find places that you want to go back to and spend time. I don't know. That's something to be thinking about, that you're locking yourself into this one way of traveling, and living for quite a long period of time, unless you can rent out your cabin or prepared to just not be there. One of the major cons that keeps getting touted is the size of the cabins. They are small cabins, like it is a smaller cabin ship than the modern ships. It's not something that really bothers me. At the moment I'm living in a small two-bedroom apartment with my daughter, and it's great. Like my room's smaller than an inside cabin, and I'm perfectly happy with it. I love it actually. I don't need a lot of space. But if I was sharing the cabin with my husband, then that would be probably a different story. He has a lot more stuff than me. Um, I don't know, maybe the option to that would be to get two cabins next door to each other, and then he can have his mess and I can have my clean space. But yeah, I just think two cupboards, two closets, like I don't really see how two people can live full time in something with two small, like one small closet each. I just don't think that's enough. I have seen some good storage options that people have done. People have got like the IKEA Kallax units, the IKEA shoe cupboards, some other tall cupboards, things like that that they're using for extra storage. Underneath the bed, obviously, same as in a traditional cruising, use the space under the bed. But I still think the cabins, yeah, are pretty small, and not so much that they're small, but there's a very little storage, and I like things to be neat and tidy, so I like things to be put away. So that is a really big con for me. One thing that I thought of as a con, which is probably a bit different to other people, but other people I'm sure have thought about wanting to go and see their family, and they just sort of go, oh, that's fine, twice a year I'll take 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever off, and go and see my family. But I just think that FOMO me would look at the next itinerary and go, oh, but I don't want to miss going to see such and such or such and such. But at the same time, I couldn't go that long without seeing my daughters. So yeah, I don't know, that's like a strange one. Like yeah, I don't know if I could do it because of going home and missing out on what I'm missing out on the ship. Another thing I thought about as a con is the cost of the onboard spa area. I'm not one for doing expensive spa things, getting my nails done or anything like that. I don't do those things. I mean, I've never even had my nails done. Um, so paying cruise ship prices to just get my hair cut or anything like that, yeah, like I don't do it on a normal cruise because I think it's overpriced. you know, my my hair doesn't take a lot to be cut. It's 15 minutes for any hairdresser. So, and I just know since I've been living where I am in Melbourne, I'm still struggling to find a hairdresser that I like. So, I see a lot of the cruisers, including mostly the men, like they go in port to like a barber, but I would struggle just to find a hairdresser like in a port to cut my hair that I would trust. So that's something that would be a con for me, I think. Yeah. I'm also just a little bit worried about the medical and dental and stuff like that. It's all fine until something goes wrong. I don't believe they even have dental on there. Uh, yeah, so I'm not really sure about that, how expensive it'd be, how much the doctor and nurses on board. I mean, obviously you have insurance, but how much they can do, at what point you're going to be sort of left behind and have to catch up with the ship because you've had to go and get something done. I've been lucky so far and I don't really have any medical issues, but, who knows? Touch wood, it could happen anytime. So yeah, I'd like to know a lot more about all these kind of things before I would sign up. And at present, the state of the internet sounds like one for the cons column. Like, hopefully they're going to fix this. They're saying that they're going to get more Starlinks, it's going to improve, but from what I've heard, it can be a bit sketchy in some areas of the ship. Um, the unlimited internet, that would have been one of the pros for me. So the fact that it's not really working that well, yes, it does seem to work in the business center, but you don't necessarily want to go and sit at a desk all the time. Personally, I rather sit on my bed and work. So yeah, that's something that really needs to be fixed. Okay, this next con's kind of a personal one for me. I love my cats, and I'm not sure if I can go for like 7 years without a pet of some sort. I do know that they can have cats on board, not other pets, but cats. But I do believe that they actually already got the maximum number of cats that they can have. And anyway, I don't know if I'd bring my cat on board because mostly I'd be worried about medical, the same thing. If they got sick, how would you access a vet, and would you end up in some weird country with, stuck there with your cat. So yeah, that the pets thing would worry me, but I don't know. Maybe one of the nice people on board who've got a cat would let me go and cuddle theirs every day or something. I don't know. So that brings me to think, would it be better to just invest the money used and do a load of world cruises, land trips? It's probably a better investment. A lot of maths would have to go into it, and a lot of unknowns, but maybe that is a better way of doing it. Do some world cruises and then do a bit of land, see where you like, spend more time there. I just do love the Villa Vie, you know, 2 to 4 days in port, really immersive. But maybe you can just do that by immersing yourself in areas on land in between cruising, because cruising is so much easier. Biggest con though really is the lack of transparency from the management of Villa Vie with regards to their business plan and financials. Um, I just think there's such a strong worry that it's not going to be viable, and that's really the biggest worry for me. A lot of the criticisms that I've seen people making have really been about things like material things, like the state of the carpets, the dining room isn't open every day, the decor of the ship. Um, aren't the people on there feeling ripped off because they didn't get the things that they were promised at the beginning? And I don't know, for me, the one reason I do it is for the traveling, and that's what they're getting. They're getting the traveling. So I think that yeah, I think I'd be happy with the state of things as they are now. It's just more the future that's I'd be worried about. I mean, they're traveling the world, getting fed, having their laundry done. They're seeing some amazing places. If you've watched any of the videos, you can definitely, you'll see how amazing some of the places are being. And I really just don't think that the state of the carpets that just look like cruise ship carpets to me would really bother me. So something might be interested in the costs and options available on Villa Vie. So their pricing models have evolved. They started off with just two options, which was to buy or to by segments. Um, but the prices have both increased and they have varied. So all the prices that I quote are in US dollars and as of February 2025. Yeah, initially there was just buy a cabin and segments, which were about 6 months long. So as time goes on, more options have been announced as they try to fill the ship. I don't think this is a bad thing. People have been saying, oh, it shows how bad it is. But I think they're just trying to find the best model for the company and to get the ship full and seeing what sells, what doesn't sell. The only thing with this is finding this best model. One of the original things that they touted was that they were all going to be long-term residents, either people who owned or people who were going to be on there for 6 months. And now there seems to be a lot of people coming on, renting out for a week or two or 3 or 4 weeks, or doing the try for 1 week thing or short segments, and that obviously takes away that pro that they had. So it becomes more like a normal cruise ship. So the ownership option, which is really a right to occupy, not ownership, because at the end of the 15 years you don't own anything, but for that 15 years you own a cabin. So you can decorate that cabin, you can rent out that cabin. So these, for the 15-year span of the contract, they start around 140,000 US dollars. I believe they were only about 100,000 US dollars when they first started, but they're at about 140 now. The price depends on the location and the size of the cabin. On top of this, there is a monthly fee, and the big benefit is the ownership is that they say that this monthly fee will never increase over the 15 years. As I said before, I don't really know how this is going to work though. As well as being able to rent out your cabin if you're an owner. There is also buyback and trade-in options advertised on the website. I don't know if anyone's tried these, whether they actually do give you the money back, but there is those options. So an example of actual cost is an outside obstructed view cabin on deck 6 is 160,000 up front, plus monthly charges of 2,500 per person for double occupancy or 4,000 for a solo traveller. So segments allow booking for a part of the world trip. Currently segments on offer range from 23.3 thousand for a 69-day Australia-New Zealand segment to 43,000 for a 127-day South American segment. This is also in an obstructed outside cabin on deck 6. More recently, some other packages have been included. So there's Endless Horizons. This involves a one-off fee for the use of a guaranteed cabin. So you don't get to choose a cabin and can be moved around, but there is no monthly cost and you can come and go as you wish. This is subject to cabin availability and notice is needed. This costs from $350,000 for a solo and $600,000 for a couple in an ocean view cabin. It goes up to $1,250,000 for a solo or $1,750,000 for a couple in a suite. Villa Vie is an option that involves renting a porthole cabin for 1, 2, 3, or 4 years. 1 year costs $80,000 for a single or $100,000 for double occupancy. Up to 4 years, $256,000 single, $320,000 double. They've also been offering a 7-day try before you buy option, and this costs $1,500 solo, $2,000 for a couple in an ocean view room. So that's quite steep pricing for a 1 week cruise, and I'm not really sure how much of a feel for the ship you're really going to get in 1 week. And just announced a seasonal ownership where you buy credits that you can exchange for time on board. This is how I think it runs. I'm not really sure. I didn't quite understand it, but I think it's an $8,000 per year contract fee, and then you buy credits. So the credits are bought in 120 credit lots for the year at $25,000 US for 120 credits. And you can purchase up to 9 lots of these contracts, so up to 1,080 credits each year. So each 120 credits will buy you 60 days in an inside cabin, 50 in an ocean view, and 30 in a balcony cabin. So comparing, if this is how I've got this one right, seasonal ownership to segments, the South Pacific segment of 103 days is 34.8 thousand in an ocean view cabin. And 100 days would cost you 2 seasonal ownership credits, so 50,000 plus the 8,000 per year fee. So that's, yeah, so 58,000 against 35,000. It's a lot more expensive way of doing it if you want to spend a longer time on board than doing the segments, but it does mean you can be more flexible and do parts of segments. It's like a timeshare, I think. You can just sort of come in and out. Friends and family can visit, and the cost depends on the package you're on, but it's about $129 per night. At least that's how much it is for Endless Horizons and Villa Vie. It was much lower for owners originally. I remember quite a low price being quoted. I don't know if that's still the case, but yeah, it's good that you can bring, family on to visit and maybe spend a week with you. It's a different than just you having to travel back each time, and they get a bit of a holiday out of it. So yeah, so whilst there's a predictable cost of living, it does seem it is a bit more expensive, I think, in general than, doing back-to-back cruises as a way of living on a cruise ship. But obviously the itinerary is a lot better, and, there's a lot of other benefits involved in residential cruising than spending a lot of time on commercial ships with holidaymakers. I think one other thing to consider when comparing the prices with an ordinary cruise, like a commercial cruise, is that there's lots of added ons on a commercial cruise, your internet, drinks, um, all of that kind of thing that is included or can be done a lot more cheaply on the Odyssey. So yeah, that and the itinerary, I think, yeah, really does make it a really good option. I also know that one of the ways a lot of people get cheap cruises, if you follow any of the people that are cruising, living on a cruise ship, is through the gambling offers. So that's the cheapest way to get cruises is through the casino offers on cruise ships. As I said before, I don't gamble, so it's not really an option for me. Though, seeing the deals that some people get when I've been on cruises, and they get a free cabin and lots of onboard credit, free drinks in the casino, all that kind of thing. Some people get free drinks everywhere. It does make you think, oh, that could be good, but then I remember you can't really win, so I'm not going to probably do that. How a lot of people getting cheap cruises and living on a world cruise. So is it worth it? That's the final question, isn't it? So for those dreaming of a life at sea, Villa Vie Odyssey is an intriguing concept. It simplifies global travel, offers a unique cruising experience. However, with questions around the ship's age, the costs, company reliability and their financials, and the fact that a lot of people don't want to spend a long, long time on a cruise ship, yeah, does it make it worth it? Would I personally do it? As I say, I'm kind of keen on the whole idea. I would probably only rent for a year or two, three maybe, It would be a once in a lifetime adventure. I wouldn't commit to long-term selling all my belongings and living on there. No, I couldn't commit to something that I didn't 100% trust to last. And I still don't know, even though like right now, I think, oh, I'd love to live on a cruise ship. I don't know how I'd feel in 10 years' time. Like my life would be different then. So we'll see. But anyway, it's not really, I'm not ready to stop working. So it's not really a viable option for me right now. So you never know. In 10 years' time, let's hope that Villa Vie is a success and I've got lots of offerings, and it's something I will probably relook at in 5 or 10 years. Certainly at least look at maybe doing 1 3.5 year tour, and by then hopefully all the problems will be ironed out, and maybe there might be a few companies, maybe even some of the more established companies doing the same kind of thing if it looks like it's a successful venture. What do you think? Would you live on a residential cruise ship? Would you live on a cruise ship at all? Like just doing back to backs? If you consider it, not consider it, why don't you let me know in the comments below what you think? I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I have given a sort of non-judgmental discussion about some of the things about Villa Vie that I found out, and I hope that's given you a bit of food for thought. If you enjoyed this video and want to see some of the adventures I'm going on, then please like and subscribe to my channel. It really does help me grow. So yeah, thanks for watching.